Hey everybody, Dr. Rick here. Good morning. It's Monday. We're going to talk about some form of dynamic of money on Mondays. We've been doing it for a while now. We're going to get into an intense flow over the next several months. We want to enter into the summer months with a particular focus and goal in mind, with the idea of closing out this year strong. I can't stress to you enough the importance of intent. Intent is so powerful, and we're going to learn that even when we're talking about, hey, little bro, what's going on, Will? Um, oh, Teresa, look, we're going to talk about the importance of intent. We're going to talk about the importance of having an idea of how your life is going to carry out over a particular period of time. I break my life down in multiple increments, from a 5-year vision, 10-year. I have a 10-year vision, and people say, you got a 10-year plan. No, I have a 10-year vision. And here's why I say I have a 10-year vision, but I don't have a 10-year plan. What I've learned over the last 15 years is that while back in my 20s, a couple of decades back in my 20s, I could sit up and say, I got a 5-year plan, because things weren't as fast as they are now. When I was in my 20s, there wasn't the internet on the level it is now. It was a novice idea that a few people had access to, with a big expectation. But everything was, you had to get it at the library. You had to get it on microfiche. You had to go down and do research the hard way. And you had to get your information out the hard way. Radio and television was still huge. And if people couldn't afford radio and television, well, people couldn't really advance their brand the way they would like to. It was much harder to advance a brand without television, a television ad spend and a radio ad spend. Now, most companies invest 80 to 90% of their marketing spend on social media. And so now what worked last month won't work this month. And so you're evolving. So sitting up and coming up with a plan and strategy of how you're going to do something locks you into an old and formal way of thinking. And we're going to talk about all this in talking about money. But so what you have to do is have an idea where you're going. Be consistently in the process of measuring yourself. And then understand when what you're doing that once worked is slowly declining in productivity, you need to evolve. Those who win big are going to be those who evolve first, those who create the new mechanism of engagement, those who create the new trend of branding and marketing and customer engagement, and the accumulation and collection of customer intelligence, and all of those things that lead off into the ability to serve people what they want, how they want, when they want it, and stay ahead of the curve. Those, well, can't think of his name right now, but he said, and I want to say in 1990, he said, those who are illiterate in the 21st century won't be those who can't read or write. It will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And so that's why I don't have a 5 or 10-year plan, because the strategy is going to evolve long before I get to 3 and 4 years. So I have an idea, and then I am able to sit up and evaluate what's going on. A lot of people right now are failing because they refuse to come out of an old way of thinking, an old way or an old idea of how something should be done based on experience, and to move into a new idea, a new way of thinking. The way I do business now is completely different than the way I did business 15, 20 years ago. The way that I achieve my clients and customers is completely different than the way I did it 10, 15 years ago. And so you have to be willing to adopt. You have to be willing to move along a line or a continuum of change. Let me tell you something, change is inevitable. The problem is change without focus on change and without intent on change doesn't automatically equate to growth. See, growth comes from intentional change. See, I grow when I know that I need to know more about this industry, when I need to know more about this skill set, when I need to know more about something, and I intentfully go out and gather what I need. I go out and train and condition and learn what I need to learn. That's intentional. That's how growth takes place. Change is going to happen with or without your permission. Okay, no, so we're going to get into this in a second, but before I do, if you haven't gotten it, this is book number 20, but it's the first book in a 6-book series that is focused on personal development, personal growth, how you see yourself, how you talk about yourself, how you put yourself in the best position to win in life, no matter where you're talking about. See, it's not just about money. And we're going to talk about why it's not just about money today, but it's not just about money. It's not just about things. It's more importantly about how you see yourself. It's more importantly about the place that you put yourself. It's more importantly about the relationships you build. And so you need to be good in all of those areas. And this is the first book. The second book, and the link is in there. The second book I'm excited about, we're getting ready to release. It's going to be book number 21, book 2 in the 6-book series, and it's called I Am. I Am, the beginning, the prelude to a declaration. I am is the prelude. It is saying, I'm about to tell you something. I'm about to make a declaration about my life, about my personage, about my personality, about my financial state, about my relationships, about my marriage, about whatever. I am is powerful. 2 most powerful words in the English lexicon. Why? Because the things that follow declare and set the path of your life. Most people don't pay close enough attention to their self-talk. That's the first thing I start to pay attention to when I'm working with the client. I'm having conversation with them, and I'm building rapport with them because I want them to be open. I want them to talk the way they talk when they're talking with other people and just let it flow. I want them talking exactly how they normally talk because I'm paying attention to their self-talk. What are you saying about yourself? What you're saying about yourself is setting the declaration, which will become established point of force and movement in your life. Most people don't realize when you sit up and say something, I don't care how tight cash flow gets in my business. I will never, ever say I'm broke. And there are 2 ways for that. Here's where mindset comes in. I tell people all the time. It's not strategy as much as it is mindset. 80% of success in any area of life is mentality, psychology, mindset. 20% or less is strategy, mechanics, whatever. How I feel about myself. Why won't you say you're broke if you have a cash flow problem? See, first and foremost, if I start to say it, there's an energy that goes with the reality of it. So I start to lower my vibration. I start to function on a vibration that a person who believes that they're broke will feel and be. The problem is with a low vibration, that vibrational energy can only attract what's on its frequency. And so the lower I go in vibration, but I want to stay 500 hertz or higher. So love starts at about 500 hertz, and then where you reach 700 hertz is like where you start to discover and experience enlightenment. So when you're learning yourself, when you're learning skills, when you're discovering something new, that's the highest thing. The brain loves to discover things. And so the thoughts that come from that are emitted. And then you have to admit, when you're learning something new, you're always thinking, man, I bet this could help me. And so you're constantly raising, but you want to stay at about 500 hertz or higher. But if I sit up and I say I'm broke because I'm having a cash flow problem, I not only start to plant that seed of brokenness, I start to experience the physical reality of brokenness. My frequency goes down, and the lower your frequency goes down, the more it negatively impacts your physicality. So you start to feel it in your body. You feel like it, and the more you feel like it, the more you start to identify with it. You're literally creating a reality that didn't actually exist, and I'm going to explain why. Because the second reason that I never say I'm broke is because money doesn't define my wealth. Money is simply a tool and an instrument in the building of wealth. My wealth is me. My wealth is what I am able to do, my value to the community, my value to the world, my value to my family, my value to myself. And the most powerful asset that I possess that always ensures that I'll never be broke is my mentality, my mind, my resourcefulness. If you want to put it, my greatest resource is my resourcefulness, not what I have already, but my ability to go out and get whatever I need. That's the difference. That's why that's why you'll get, I'm telling you what I know from experience of being around people with significant amounts of money and having these great strategies and having this great life of success. That on average, and this has been, statistically substantiated, on average, and I use the word average, on average, a millionaire will experience what most people will call being broke on average 3 times over the course of their life. Some will experience it more, others will experience it less, but on average, 3 times. You're going to have it, something's going to happen, it's going to decline or you're going to lose it, and you're going to have to build it again. But I argue that the wealth is not in the thing, it's in what created the thing, and that's you. But when you find people who have done it, they don't panic. Why? Because I've done it before. I'll do it again. It's me. It's not the thing. The mechanism is just something I used. It's me. And it's understanding that. And it's the thing. And when I learned this, I began to look at life differently and I began to build differently. Most of my building is not in accumulation. Now, when I can find and accumulate something that's going to be of value, or I can create something, I'm real big in getting something done and put out, distributed, that holds value. Books are great, especially when it has something that is evergreen, something that's going to be an issue and still valid years from now, because it holds value. And anyway, I'm going to get to that, but don't forget to get the book, the I Am book, because I'll get to talking about it. I'm excited about it, so I'll get to talking about it, and we won't ever get to the money. I Am. Here's the thing with the I Am thing. We are getting ready to release it this month. We're still getting order because I like to write my books what I call modularly instead of linear. Linear means you have to read it from the first chapter through to get an understanding. I like to write my books modular, meaning that every chapter stands alone. So you can actually look at a chapter when you get to the book and say, man, I'm really struggling with this particular area. Go to it, and it will be inclusive enough and comprehensive enough that you'll literally get a grasp on what you need to do without having to read the whole book to get there. But you can read the whole book and you can build on it. You can literally take the blocks, the modular blocks of every chapter and start stacking them and build that way. And if you've got an issue that you really need to address now, you find that chapter, you go to it, you read it, then you say, okay, I think I've got to start working on this. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to build. And you build and you work. And so we're getting everything in order in that way, finishing up some things. The book is set to be released this month. And by pre-ordering it, you're going to get it at a discounted price. Promotional price, and you're also going to get a free 30-minute breakthrough session with yours truly. And we're going to deal with at least one issue that you are confronted with, that you're struggling with in some area, or you are at least like some enlightenment on. And we're going to attack that in 30 minutes. You're going to be unbelievably surprised at how much you can get accomplished. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about, hello, Kim. Let's go ahead and talk about Money Monday, the invisible force of self-image and the ability for it to either help or hurt you. My whole Visionetics concept, the Visionetics Institute, is my brainchild. It is the compilation of some discoveries I learned from other people, the theories and theorems that came out of it, and the development of a certain skill set. The first book that I ever read that touched on this was a book actually by a guy by the name of Guy Greenfield, back when I was still in high school. and he talked about the power of the self-image. And he did it primarily from a religious perspective, but he was a licensed psychologist. But he talked about the importance of the self-image. And he started to talk about the importance and the need, the incessant need of the human mind to literally align behavior and functionality with the self-image. How you see yourself is how you perform. And then that led me to a deeper look into what he was talking about, which was psycho-cybernetics, which is a phrase coined by Maxwell Marx. And Maxwell Marx used to be a cosmetic surgeon, plastic surgeon, I guess what you want to call him back then, but a cosmetic surgeon. And he found that he could do some great work. He's one of the best. He's internationally known. And back in the 60s, 50s, 60s and stuff like that. And what he found is that he could get some patients, and he did the work and it was exceptional. And they were just happy with it, and they went on and their life was changed. Confidence levels went through the roof. And he could get the same results for another person. And I mean, it'd be so close to what they demanded that you just knew they were going to be happy. But you would find that they even went into a deeper level of depression, and they lacked confidence. It didn't work, and he didn't understand why. So he started to look into it, and he actually went into psychology. So he became a psychiatrist. He was a doctor, but he became a psychiatrist. And what he talked about is psycho-cybernetics. He became very keen and aware of the human psyche, especially the self-image and the power of the self-image to create things. You can set a goal, but if you set a goal outside of the spectrum or the range of your self-image and what your self-image believes about what you're capable of, your self-image is going to reel you back in. That's why you see so many people self-sabotaging, is they're dealing with the goal. They're making the goal the primary focus instead of making their mind the primary focus. What am I getting at here? Well, what he found is he called it psycho-cybernetics. Cybernetics speaks of mechanisms that are automatically programmed to hold a particular setting. When I think about a cybernetic mechanism, the first thing that comes to mind is the thermostat in your house. You set it on, especially smart thermostats now, you set it on 70. When you set your thermostat on 70, if for some reason it starts to get warm outside, the cooling system comes on. If it goes up 1 degree or 2 degree higher, I know ours, if it goes up 1 degree higher, it triggers the system. And when it triggers the system automatically comes in and brings it back down to 70. If for some reason it starts to get cold, it triggers the heating system, and the heating system comes on and it warms it back up to 70. It's designed to maintain that course. Another cybernetic mechanism is the autopilot on airplanes. It's designed to set a course to arrive at a specific destination. And so when you get blown off course while you're flying, that cybernetic mechanism and autopilot system is constantly recorrecting, recorrecting until you get there. You're always moving off. Anytime you're dealing with wind, you're moving off course, but it's correcting. And then when it gets in range, the pilot takes over and flies it in. But let's talk about the 70 degrees. 70 degrees is the setting. It's simply an analogy. And the analogy is to your self-image. Your self-image, if your self-image says that I'm smart, you tend to go after things, you challenge things intellectually. If your self-image says I'm athletic and I'm highly competitive, then you go and you challenge and you take on things physically. And some people are both. But here's the dark side. If your self-image says that, well, I am, let's say 70 is average. And so we're using the analogy of the thermostat. 70 is average, and I'm 70, but I want to be an 80. But instead of focusing on getting my self-image in place, I set 80 goals. Here's what happens. When I start to move up into those 80s, my self-image is going to be an instrument that makes me highly uncomfortable. My self-image is going to demand that I come back to it. Remember, one of the strongest forces in life is the need to align with how you see yourself. That's why I always tell parents, be careful what you say to your kids. Stuff like, you're stupid, you are dumb, you're never going to be anything, you're going to be just like your, and you know, all these negative things. Why? Because the parent is the primary label giver. What do I mean by that? Children, the self-image is a combination of how you see yourself, how others perceive you. And the younger you are, the external perceptions are stronger, especially from those who are primary level givers. Those in positions of authority in our lives when we are youth have a very powerful impact in the way of providing our labels. How we see ourselves, how we define ourselves, what we say about ourselves comes from them. Now, every now and then there's a kid that just simply will not receive it and, you know, they pass it, but most kids are going to be defined initially by their parents. You know, what are you saying to your kid? How are you saying it? What labels are you giving them? And then that self-image is implanted. So now I see it. And then what you'll see is the kid carrying out the behavior. They become a self-fulfilling prophecy because now they believe that they're a troubled kid. They believe that they're problematic. They believe that they have ADHD. They believe they have this. They believe they are suffering from oppositional defiant disorder. And so they're over here just cutting up in school because it aligns with how they see themselves. And if you can't change how they see themselves, you won't be able to consistently change the behavior. No matter what threats you throw out, no matter how you respond to it, you've got to get to the self-image. The self-image is the thermostat. And what happens in life, you can sit up and say, man, I'm going to make, you know, if you're making $50,000 a year and you say, I'm going to do something this year, I'm going to make 100,000. This is going to be a 6-figure year. Or maybe you're making 6 figures. You say, I'm going to jump to 7 figures. You're going to have to redefine who you are. Because you got to remember, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. You are the one who sets the value in your life. Money is a mechanism and an expression of your value. It is not the definer of your value. You are. You determine in your mind who you are, and you start to work on it. Your self-talk. You know, let me show you how it works. If I want to change the thermostat, I have to change the setting. How do I change the setting? I personally move it, or in my case, punch it in. And when I punch it in, it's a new setting. Well, how do you punch it in your self-image? You have to make a new imprint. You have to understand there's this thing in the brain called neuroplasticity. You're constantly engaging new ideas, and how much emphasis you place on the new idea, how much energy you invest in the new idea will determine how powerful the new idea is. Now, if you come across a new idea and it's solely suggestive, it's something that comes through, but you don't grab it, you don't take hold of it, you don't make it a part of what you want to invest yourself in, eventually it will die. The neural pathway that was created by that new thought, that new idea, that new information, that new concept, that new direction, it will simply just dwindle away, and eventually it will atrophy to the point that it disappears, and it won't be emphatic. But if you decide that you want to really focus on being something different and you entertain a new thing, this is something that I've trained myself to do every day. My goal is not to be the person today that I was yesterday. By the time the day ends, I want to be somebody different. I want to be somebody stronger, somebody better, someone who knows a little bit more. The only competition I have in this world is myself. I don't compete with anybody else. I've got a goal, I've got an assignment, I've got a purpose, and my goal is to be the best me that I can be. So I'm looking at who I am today. How can I be better tomorrow? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better businessman? How can I be a better influencer in my community? And so then I'm looking, what could I learn? What could I do? What can I become? Why? Because I don't get in this life what I want or what I say I want. I get what I become. And what does that mean? That means if I want to produce, let's go back to the 70, 70 being average and on your thermostat. If I want to be a 90, then I can say I want to be a 90 all day, but I got to change the thermostat. How do I change this thermostat? I punch in things. So I'm going to punch in a new idea about how I function. I no longer function on this level. I function on this level. I keep speaking it. I keep saying, I keep thinking, I read things that will get me there. I start to engage it. I practice it. And when I first start practicing it, it's the time I'm most likely to quit. Why? Because I suck at it. It's uncomfortable. I don't see any way or anyhow that this is going to turn out. And is it anything you do? Think about it. If you ever shot pool, if you ever played basketball, think back to the first time you picked it up and you saw somebody else who was playing it and they had been playing it a while. You know, And you see them, they can dribble with both hands. They can dribble between their legs, behind their backs. They can shoot off the glass, shoot nothing but net. They can shoot with both hands. And you're sitting up and you got to look at the ball just to dribble it. And they tell you, you can't look at the ball, somebody's going to steal it. And you're looking at the ball, somebody comes steal it. That's embarrassing. It's frustrating because everybody else out there can do it better than you. But the people who stayed with it and decided that I'm going to keep practicing it, I'm not. And what's the difference? When you start playing, you don't see yourself as a basketball player. You see yourself as a person playing basketball. And so you can't get to 90. You're below 70. You're like a 60 or worse. And you're sitting up because you're not what? You're not a basketball player. You're a person playing basketball. If you ask a person who you see every freaking morning coming into Starbucks after it looked like a 5-mile run, there's a person on my page that every day she's posting her 5K run or her 5-mile run every day. And if you ask her why and how and what kind of discipline it takes to get up every day and run it every evening after a long day's working, and then train for these different events that she runs for, she will simply tell you, I'm a runner, it's what I do. When you see people in the gym all the time, I'm a fitness freak. It's what I do. I'm not happy if I don't hit the gym in the morning. They're telling you. So in essence, it's not what you want, it's who you are. See, when you sit up and say that I am a business-minded person, or I am a business person, or a businessman, or whatever you want to define yourself. Now, it's not about the personal business you're dealing, or the individual business you're dealing with. It's the fact that no matter what you do, you're going to have a business mindset. I have a money mindset. So no matter what I do, it's going to be focused on building value. Value all the time isn't about cash flow. So there are times when cash flow isn't where you want it to be. It's about value to me. It's about what I can sit up and create that will have value. Value is something that can be expressed in more ways than one. Money is just one way that it can be expressed. It's the most liquid way that it can be expressed, but it's hardly ever the best way. And that's the thing we got to understand about money. Money is not what provides happiness. So many people think if I get money, I'm going to be happy. And I can tell you personally, that's not the case. I know a bunch of people make under 6 figures and live lives that are fulfilling and they're extremely happy. I know a bunch of people that are extremely wealthy that are miserable. And one of the reasons they're miserable is they convinced themselves before they became wealthy that wealth was the answer to their problems. And wealth puts you in a position to do what you do. If you're not living in your purpose, you're probably not going to be happy. No matter what you accumulate, no matter how much you get, if you're not functioning in your purpose, you're probably not going to be happy. If you don't know who you are, you're not going to be happy. If you're doing things because other people told you you had to do them, you're probably not going to be happy. Happiness and joy are things, and they are part of that above 500 thing. When you experience joy and all that stuff is up there. And it's amazing that it's in that high of a range, but it's something you create for yourself. Everything that creates this high frequency that you want to function on, and you're talking about energy from 500 hertz up, is something that comes from within. It's nothing that has to happen outside of you in order for you to be it. It's amazing. Now, the funny thing is, the things that actually are low frequency normally come from external influences. Fear, anger, anxiety, frustration are all things that are responsive or reactive to external stimuli. You were designed to create an optimal environment for yourself to function in. But you have to be able to understand that it's not what I want, it's what I am. And what I'm able to become. I don't get what I want, I get who I am. So if I want something that I haven't been able to produce, I personally have to change. If I want to experience life in a different way and at a higher level, I have to change. Not in the sense of doing the thing. Because see, what happens is, if I'm overweight and I decide I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get down to whatever weight it is I'm going to get down to. The thermostat on how I see myself is Exactly that. I'm not a gym rat. I'm not this. I don't like eating right. I need my fried chicken. I'm a food connoisseur, whatever way we want to define it. We're saying eating what we want is more important than eating healthy. And we've defined that. We've set the thermostat on enjoying what I eat more than eating right and learning how to enjoy eating right. And so that's where I'm at. So what'll happen is I can be motivated and I can have enough willpower to initiate something like signing up for the gym and going the first couple of months, or taking on a new diet to burn some weight. And I'll even see the weight come off and I'll be excited about what I'm seeing. But if I didn't change the mindset into something that can facilitate and sustain the behavior, in other words, if I haven't trained my mind to see myself as being a fit person, or an athlete, it's like, and I've experienced it in my life, when I stopped being an athlete, you know, and I don't mean competing in an organization, but I mean in seeing myself as somebody that had to be competing at something physical at least 2 or 3 times a week, I saw it reflected in my fitness. Because my ability to compete physically, I don't like to lose. So I'm never going to go something and do anything where I'm not highly prepared. So even after I got out of what I was doing as an athlete and started just focusing on business, I still played, I still ran, I still did things that I can compete with people at. And it drove me because I want to win. And so I want to be the best I can be if I step on the court. No, never played basketball professionally. I played some summer league and some winter league, over the course of my life, and had a ball, but I compete. I don't like losing. If I'm playing spades, I'm competing. If I'm in chess, whatever it is, I want to win. If you beat me, you're going to have to be better than me. And so, but once I got out and I started focusing more, and it was more, I'm a business person. And the more the identity came in, and the thing is, I could have been both, but I'm just focused on business. I found myself sitting in front of the computer, being at meetings, and most meetings are at restaurants. And I'm sitting in front of the computer. I'm living a sedentary lifestyle. I'm not getting to the gym as much. That's on the decline. I'm definitely not hitting the track the way I used to. It doesn't fit into my day, but more importantly, it doesn't fit into my identity anymore. And so the way that I had to actually get to where I started training myself is I had to see myself as an athlete again. So then I had to say, okay, I'm going to start playing this again. And just the idea of going to say I'm going to play it and getting that stirred up again automatically demands that I be in a certain level of fitness, in a certain level of shape, being able to do something at a certain level. Why? Because I'm not just out there to have fun and run up and down the court. There are some people that get there. And me and a couple of my friends, both of which played, what's wrong with this damn thing? Played basketball in Europe. They actually go to the same spot I go to, which is Lifetime Fitness. And Lifetime is like a resort. It's a pretty cool little place. But they get, and he's like, man, I like getting out here with these guys, even and running and playing ball, even if the guys suck. And there's some guys out there that just absolutely suck. They're just up there running down, having fun. They don't see themselves as basketball players. They see themselves as men playing basketball. But what's got them on the court is something different they identify with. And so they're not out there because they think they're going to come there and they're going to run 5 games in a row because they're going to keep winning. They're out there, man, I'm just going out to have fun. We're going to fellowship. We're going to laugh and talk. And that's just the way they do it. But getting out there with them and still being there is a part of the process. Look, I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna shut this down. Hey, Tia, man, everybody's showing up here. Look, I want to share something with you, and I want you to get this. You can set all the goals you want to, money-wise, business-wise, and everything else. If you don't change what's here, you're going to have a problem with your cybernetic organism. The cybernetic organism is the same as a cybernetic mechanism. In your brain, it's an organism. In your mind, it's an entity, but it's the same force. It's going to say, you set me at 70. And maybe you set your thermostat at 70 because that's what your mother told you you were. You were 70. Or maybe your father told you you were 70 or whatever. And so you set it at 70. And that's the problem. It's at 70. So now you're setting these goals at 90. I'm a 90 now, whatever that means in your life. But you haven't changed how you see yourself. You're going to work toward it for a while, and then you're going to get reeled back in, because your greatest and your most powerful need and force is to align with how you see yourself. If you want to change what you're accomplishing, you got to change how you see yourself. You got to be willing to put in the work. You got to be willing to go forward. You got to be willing to do the things that are necessary. With that being said, I'm going to get off of here. Don't forget, if you haven't gotten Critical Mass, prime example of psycho-cybernetics. People say, how did you get to 20 books and now you're about to publish 21? I'm a writer. I don't just write books. I've got thousands of articles out there. I'm a writer. How do you have so many videos of you speaking? I'm a speaker. It's natural. I've been talking since like 1 to nonstop. I mean, literally, my grandmother told me the only thing that I would cry about is that she told me to shut up. And now my wife is telling me to shut up. I don't cry anymore when I get told, to hush, but that talks to who I am. I see myself as a speaker. I see myself as a writer. I don't have to motivate myself to do it. I'm driven to do it. I'm constantly writing. I've got probably 13 journals that are active, and I can't tell you how many I've finished. 13 active journals that I write in about different things. Every day I'm writing because I'm a writer. And how you define yourself is going to determine what you do. If you keep saying you're broke, no matter what you set your goals at, you're going to come back to a place that you define as being broke. That's it. I'm going to get out of here. You have a great day. As I always say, live your life on full, Downey.